Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Obsessive Compulsive Gaming. I am the Obsessive Compulsive Gamer, and this is my review for GRANBLUE FANTASY VERSUS Rising. GRANBLUE FANTASY VERSUS Rising originally released all the way back in 2023. A year I remember fondly as the year I played such fantastic video games as Marvel's Spider-Man 2, Final Fantasy XVI, and Star Wars Jedi Survivor. It was also the year I tried very unsuccessfully to seduce Zelda from The Legend of Zelda. But we're not here to talk about that. No, we are here to talk about GRANBLUE FANTASY VERSUS Rising. And just like that beautiful bearded bastard Barry Bertrum, you're probably wondering,
what is this? What is it? What is this?
GRANBLUE FANTASY VERSUS Rising is a 2D fighting beat-em-up game thing that sometimes plays like your standard beat-em-up like Street Fighter, and at other times plays more akin to something like Streets of Bloody Rage. And this game is a kind of, sort of sequel to GRANBLUE FANTASY VERSUS, which in itself took place in the same world as a 2014 RPG called GRANBLUE Fantasy. So, story. We play as a ragtag group of sky pirates, skyfarers, I'm not really sure, as they try to thwart the plans of an evil dickhead or some such nonsense. Let's face it, dear viewers, you're not really here for the story, you're more here for the gameplay. So let's review this beat-em-up video game the only way I know how. Badly. And let's start with what I liked about GRANBLUE FANTASY VERSUS. Oh, and speaking of things I like it when you subscribe to the channel and like this video. So please do that for me, dear viewers. Doing so will allow me to live out my lifelong dream of having 1,190 subscribers. So the first thing I must simply commend GRANBLUE FANTASY VERSUS Rising for is its visuals. Pay attention to the kind of cartoony anime aesthetic visuals on display here, dear viewers. Absolutely splendid. None of that realistic bullshit that you get in so many modern video games these days. I want to play a cartoon come to life, and damn it, GRANBLUE FANTASY VERSUS Rising lets me do just that. The gameplay is also rather magnificent, so like I said, most of the time you'll be watching cutscenes, seeing how the story unfolds, and when you're not doing that, you're of course going to be fighting things, which I suppose is kind of expected, this being a beat-em-up and all. And you either do that by fighting mano a mano, 1-on-1, or possibly 2-on-1. Because sometimes you can bring another character into the fight with you who'll be controlled by the computer. Or you'll be doing this kind of going between screens and beating up lesser enemies, like Streets of Rage. Though bizarrely, you only do that in the first third, maybe 2/3 of the story mode. The actual sequel part of this game, the Rising in the title, if you will, that doesn't have any of those side-scrolling going between the screen sequences. That's right, dear viewers, the actual sequel part of this game is only 1/3 of the story modes. The other 2/3 are basically just a rehash of the content from GRANBLUE FANTASY VERSUS, which released on the PlayStation 4. So if you played that game, you'll be very pleased to hear that you can carry over your progress and either replay that content like I did, or carry on from where you left off and play all the new stuff. Now, of course, this being a beat-em-up, it doesn't just have a story mode. There's a plethora of gameplay modes here for you to enjoy. Online, arcade mode, a practice mode, a kind of online lobby thing, hangout area thingamabob where you pick an avatar and you go in and you can sit at arcade machines and wait to be challenged by other players. All of that good beat-em-up goodiness. Another thing I really enjoyed about this game was the sound. I like my beat-em-ups to have a good soundtrack, and thankfully GRANBLUE Fantasy Versus Rising does just that. And it even has English voiceovers as well as Japanese, so you can pick whatever one you prefer. Of course, all of the playable characters from GRANBLUE Fantasy Versus are carried over here, as well as all of the DLC characters that were available for that game. And even 4 new characters. That's right, dear viewer, 4 completely new characters. And of course, they all have their own unique skill sets and special powers and moves. And if you're feeling particularly lazy, in the story mode anyway, you can set it so that the computer controls your character. So if you have to nip off to the toilet, or you just simply cannot be bothered doing a particular fight, well, you can let the computer take care of that for you. Kinda defeats the purpose of playing the game in the first place, but if that's what you want to do, you can do it. So, was there anything I particularly didn't like about GRANBLUE Fantasy Versus Rising? Well, like I've already alluded, this is sort of a sequel, but for the most part, this is just GRANBLUE Fantasy Versus, but instead of being on the PlayStation 4, you can now play it on the PlayStation 5. There's a load of extra cutscenes in the story mode, a load of extra fights, but the majority of the content is pretty much identical to GRANBLUE Fantasy Versus. So if you didn't like that game, you're certainly not going to enjoy this one. But if you did like that game and you don't mind splurging out some more of your hard-earned money to play the quote-unquote sequel to that game, then you could do a lot worse with GRANBLUE Fantasy Versus Rising. Though personally my favourite game in this particular series is, and probably always will be, GRANBLUE Fantasy Relink. But that's an action RPG and this is a beat-em-up. Therefore, I declare that GRANBLUE Fantasy Versus Rising is still splendid. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, my review. If you enjoyed this little review of mine, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. If you haven't enjoyed it, well then feel free to give me a thumbs down. But please remember the single most important thing I always tell you, dear viewer, and that is to always stay obsessed with gaming. Are you still here? Oh, you must have really enjoyed this video then. In that case, you had better subscribe to the channel and check out our other content. Otherwise, you're a booby pants, and no one wants to be a booby pants.